Loud.
Hmm. Welcome, everybody, to this conversation on what is intimacy, how do we cultivate it, why are we so afraid of it.
Hmm.
Today, we are showing up, the three of us. It's been a long time coming, and I'm really excited to present this topic as embodiment and intimacy mentors. Lena and I, actually, all of us right now are in a global Gene Keys retreat. And for Lena and myself, we both have our life's work being the gift of intimacy. So for the whole of last month, we've actually been contemplating what is intimacy. And what came to me as an interesting podcast topic is to actually go around and each present a definition of intimacy and open up this topic so that people all around the world, whoever listens to this conversation, can also introduce this as the topic of contemplation, so that hopefully we as a society can actually bring and experience this thing called intimacy. Yeah, so welcome everybody, and we are Jonathan and Sasha, and today we wanted to bring our amazing friend and colleague, Elena Prema. I would love, Lena, for you to introduce yourself a little bit and what you do before we get into the questions.
Thank you, Sasha. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for our gathering and for the unfolding of this conversation. I kind of like, no idea what's gonna come up, but it's definitely one of my favorite things to talk about. And when I realized that uh, according to Gene Keys, my life work actually is in the realm of honesty, intimacy, and transparency. It kind of just like the light bulb come up, because I was like, everything started to finally really make sense. What I'm doing now and how my path actually led me to who I am showing up as at this moment, which is relationship and dating coach. I've been into wellness for many years, and I always thought like this is like my main calling, helping people with their health and vitality. But then in the recent years, it definitely became clear for me that I really want to understand the relationships and helping myself and others with creating fulfilling, beautiful, harmonious relationships. And yeah, that's what I'm focusing on. And yeah, I'm so excited about the courses and coaching that I'm offering.
Yeah, and I love that we as a trio, Jonathan and I are in a, committed relationship now for almost 7 years, right? We bring a perspective of what it's like to be um, in a relationship that has lasted over, considerable amount of time, and that you bring the perspective of dating, right? So if somebody does not yet have the relationship and they are looking for the relationship of their dreams, this is your domain. So I love that we can, bring different perspectives into this topic. And I guess we can start with the first question, which is I wanted each of us to take some time to explain and contemplate what is intimacy for each one of us, and how do we know when it's actually happening.
Hmm.
So, who would like to?
Since I've spoken the least so far, it's great. It's a nice change of pace. I love to lead on this because I really this is a big topic, and yeah, I love it. I really I've always valued relationships. I've always it's connection is one of my core values. And it's always began with myself. Understand like how can I be more intimate with myself and just really know myself, right? And that's why I've always really
continuously taking myself out of my comfort zone my whole life. And of course, I had influence from my family upbringing, military family, and being martial arts. So I was always willing, like always expanding myself and getting to know myself better. And this allowed me to have experienced really deep relationships. And this is where I found there's always the most growth for me is in relationships, whether it was with in relationship like with my family or actual romantic partners. And intimacy for me is like I love the like more the psychosomatic perspectives, like into me I see,
Mm.
you know, and the willingness to be intimate with another is just for me is just a willingness to take off the mask, drop all the armor, and be just fully vulnerable, like just be completely open with another and be fully present and and really, yeah, with an open heart, which is
Hmm.
we're gonna go. I know we're gonna go into this deeper, which is probably the most intimidating, scariest thing for most people, right? And so
So how do you know it's actually happening for you?
because I can generally feel the person. I can see their body language. I can see them um, opening up, right? So like because I'm very aware of that, I naturally like to, you know, I make people feel comfortable. You know, in the past, it was I was a world-class fauna for this, you know, like in terms of like people pleasing that, because I wanted
Hmm.
people to feel comfortable. I wanted people to feel safe to like drop their armor and open up and that, right? Now it's like it's not it's not so much people pleasing. It's just like I know how to make people feel safe. And really it's just presence. I know how to
Hmm.
be fully present with people because I know how to be fully present with myself. And that's really what has allowed me to experience deep, very high levels of intimacy with my beloved here, and you know, like, and really all my relationships, you know, with my family, my beloved, or those individuals, those men that I've been working with for the last 5 years, you know, I love creating these spaces for men to, you know, drop the armor and really, um, yeah, practice vulnerability with empowerment, which allows them to experience deeper levels of intimacy with themselves and their those they choose to be in relationship with.
Hmm. So what I hear for you,
Mm.
intimacy is seeing into yourself and the vulnerability and the safety piece was a big one. Basically feeling safe and vulnerable to be yourself
Yeah,
with the other.
yeah, because it's hard to be in an intimate relationship with another if you're wearing all this armor. You know, I always
Mm.
use the analogy. You imagine like a knight going into bed. They're part of like they're not. It's gonna be pretty uncomfortable, right? There's not gonna be a lot of connection there because they're wearing all that armor, right? You got to be willing to take off the armor to really be able to truly connect with another.
Hmm. And maybe we can come back to the armor a little bit later after we all define intimacy, but that could be a really interesting exploration too, is like what is this armor
Yeah.
that we all
Mm.
carry?
Mm.
But thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I would love to, Lena, to hear your definition of, again, what is intimacy for you? How do you feel it? How do you know when it's actually happening?
I really love what Jonathan said about that it starts with being present with yourself and creating that safe container with yourself first. And that's how I see it. You cannot really become open and vulnerable and intimate with another unless you are that open and intimate with yourself. And what it comes down to is, again, to that piece of honesty, um, having that stillness within yourself where you're allowing yourself to really be and allow yourself to feel everything that is there,
Mhm.
including the uncomfortable feelings. Because it's often easy to be with ourselves when we're like laughing and we're joyous and we're really liking ourselves, then it's kind of okay. That's one part of intimacy. Some people not even comfortable with that in themselves, in the joy, but also like allowing kind of the shadow parts and don't see them as something like wrong or bad, but really allowing space for them and actually creating that like loving space for all of your parts to show up and express themselves, like give them voice, like really getting to know yourself on the deep level. And if we go into that gene key that we're working with, that it says dishonesty. So I was really contemplating it, and it was like, okay, dishonesty. Where am I dishonest with myself? And it comes down to those traumas that we hide from ourselves often, because they're so, it feels like it's so scary, it's so painful to look at them, because it's not just the trauma itself, there are also things like shame and guilt around it that make it really uncomfortable to look at it. And that's where I found the most also freedom coming out from that, when I create that space and I allow that, like the traumatic piece and the blame and the guilt, and it's like, I'm just like, okay, all right, this is all here, this is all part of being human, not making this like like what's wrong with me, because there is also always that like, oh, I'm inadequate, I'm wrong, I just like, I shouldn't be existing, you know, like we can get so hard on ourselves. And I feel like exploring like in depths, like the corners, the dark corners and the light corners of a psychics, that will actually create that safety also for being with others. Because again, if we didn't explore that, we're just gonna project it on other people, and we're gonna think like, oh, the world is showing up, this people is wrong, this like blaming and projecting, often not realizing that this is just the parts of us that's like we still afraid to look at, and the world is just keep reflecting it back. So it's yeah, it's also kind of like a tantric view, which I always love to explore, like having that like polarity perspective, like looking for masculine and feminine. And so masculine as that consciousness, and it's like energetic container that can hold the space, for the feminine, which is everything that rises there, like the life itself, all the expansions, creations, desires, longings, emotions, positive, negative, all of that. So that's all that feminine Shakti rising up, and that's how much is my masculine capable to hold of that feminine rising up. And that, I think, then we can bring into relationship with others as well, and hold space for each other and get to know each other in that way. So, but yes, it's a courageous path. It sounds like
Mhm.
intimacy. Yes, people think like physical intimacy, and it's like, let's think about physical intimacy like undressing ourselves. Let's put it like that, right? But before that intimacy in relationship, there should be emotional intimacy, undressing ourselves emotionally, and like showing all this like different pieces of ourselves. And that's often a lot more scary for people than undressing physically. And that's,
Mm.
I mean, I'm probably running ahead of myself, but that's where the most problem in dating and relationships, that we compensating with physical intimacy for that actual emotional and spiritual intimacy. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful. So what I heard you say, that for you, intimacy is the ability to like see and hold and allow every part of you to be, right? Not just the light, but also the dark, like the full spectrum of the human experience, being able to be seen, expressed, accepted, integrated, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Including all of life versus excluding some parts, you
Definitely.
know?
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. That actually is yeah, that kind of leads me into a nice answer for myself. What is intimacy for me? How do I know it's actually happening? It's something, because again, I also found out this is my life's work now for 7 years. It's been an interesting journey for me to like, what is intimacy? Because a lot of the times, when I hear intimacy, there is this sexual connotation that can come up. But what I'm realizing and what I've been contemplating over the years, that it's not just sexual intimacy. It's like what Lena said, it's emotional, mental, physical, even spiritual intimacy, that it's almost like including, like going, rifting on what Lena said. It's for me, intimacy is when you can also be all of you without being afraid that the other person is going to judge or like um not going to accept you or something along those lines. Like it's an experience. Like, how do you know when it's actually happening? For me, it's like it's also the safety that Jonathan mentioned. It's the vulnerability, and it's this sense of comfort with the other person, right? So yeah, it's like being able to be yourself, yeah, without fear, right? Without fear of being judged. Um, and actually, this leads us into the next question. So, if intimacy is so desired by so many of us, right? Like that's what so many people want. We want to have a partner that we can connect to. We want to have friends that we can like really be ourselves with, as well as our community and the world. Like there is this deep need of intimacy and being seen and being safe. Why do so many people, are so afraid of it? Why do we freeze or pull away or sabotage it when it actually gets real?
Mm.
And actually, I'd like to answer this first because my definition was kind of leading me into that.
Mm.
For me in my life, like I think maybe because I come from Russian heritage, right? And like for a lot, I don't know how many years during communism, like remember, I don't know, Lena, if you remember, but there was like even this campaign of like there's no sex in the USSR or something along those lines that they used to like,
Mm-hmm.
propaganda. Um, but there's this thing in Russian culture of like not like I grew up without too much hugs, like my family didn't really hug. We didn't say I love you. Like we knew we all love each other, but it wasn't like expressed. So when I was growing up, hugging wasn't so natural for me. Like it feels very intimate. It still feels intimate. I can hug people that feel really close. Like there's some people that I'm just like, you're soul family, but that doesn't happen often.
Mm.
And for me, there's like this feeling of being like uncomfortable a lot of the times with new people. I'm just like like the physical intimacy, like even a hug can feel so intimate that I don't always choose to engage in that kind of exchange. If let's say if I just met someone and it's not even, it's like energetic for me. Either my body, my mind, my being feels comfortable and there's like this natural pulling, kind of like, oh yeah, like I know you. I don't know you. I just met you, but I know you. Or there isn't, that doesn't happen. And then I notice myself kind of like holding back and almost like not protecting, but maybe you could say that I'm protecting myself just because I don't yet know the person that's in front of me. So for me, I think it's cultural because I didn't have this conditioning of like, oh yeah, hugs are just natural and you can, like, you're safe to be yourself all the time. For example, compared to Jonathan's family who hugs all the time, and just like huggers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say like it depends how people were brought up. Was intimacy allowed? Was intimacy modeled? Was there shame around any kind of intimacy? Was there, in Russian culture, emotional intimacy is not something that happens like this, It takes time. It takes people time for people to get to know each other. But then once you do, you can be intimate with your friends for life because you develop true intimacy. So yeah, I think it depends how people have been conditioned towards intimacy. on whether or not it's something that's simple and easy and natural for them, or whether they need to actually recondition, like myself. I had to recondition myself, like, oh, hugs are safe. Doesn't mean I have to choose a hug each time. And I notice myself sometimes being like, I don't want to hug you. I just met you, or I don't want to hug you in general. Um, but yeah, giving ourselves permission to be okay with that. Yeah, that's kind of like my response to why are we if we desire intimacy, why do we pull away or even sabotage it when it's presented to us or when it gets real? So yeah, I would love to hear your opinion. Would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So why, if intimacy is so desired, why do so many people freeze, pull away, or sabotage when it gets real? From my understanding, like from what I've through my own work, and I really see it as a nervous system. It's a nervous system challenge, like untrained nervous system. So really, it comes down to like the more we're willingness to be, is it to expand and stretch our capacity for love, choosing to be in relationship and really just, and like I said, this always comes back to oneself, our ability to really truly love ourselves, our capacity for love is what allows us to really be able to meet another. Because if we don't have that train, what happens, what I've experienced for myself, what I've seen in past relationships, that is where there's too much love, like then the nervous system either feels unsafe or unworthy. And that's when people tend to pull away, freeze, or fight, or like there's different nervous system response as a result, right? Because essentially the nervous system doesn't feel safe. And this could, obviously this goes back to our upbringing, different traumas, that we might have experienced through our life. But ultimately, it's like I love it's what you were saying, Elena, is like it requires courage. Like let's just be real here. It's like it requires a courage and willingness to step out of our comfort zone, right? To like, navigate the edges of our comfort zone and be willing to really be able to meet another and allow another to fully see us in that is I said it takes practice. It takes practice and willingness to really develop that relationship with oneself and choose to be in relationship with others. Yeah, it is the greatest path. Like there's no faster, more challenging path, but it's also the most rewarding and and can be very, a very accelerated path as well. Because relationships, intimacy offers us the greatest reflection, right, into ourselves. It allows us an opportunity to better know who we really are and all those parts of us. And why it's so challenging is because a lot of people, they haven't met themselves at a deep enough level. They don't necessarily want those aspects of themselves being reflected to them. So they choose not to be in a relationship, choose not to be into, because they're like, it's too confronting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this takes us back to exactly what Lena was speaking, her definition, right, of intimacy, like being able to see different parts of ourselves and have the courage to do that. And you're right. I think if people haven't met themselves at that level, it can be extremely uncomfortable to then have a reflection outside of you that says, hey, look at this part. You haven't loved it yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. In relationship, we're reflecting to each other those parts. But I'd like to start with kind of reflecting on what you, Sasha, said about being brought up in Soviet Union. And I don't know if it's just about Soviet Union. I think it's just that generation generally were less kind of huggy, touchy-feely. I know I was brought up in exactly the same way. Even my mom now says, it's like, oh, I wish we hugged you more. But yeah, it just wasn't in the culture. And it wasn't just about physical touch or like hugs, as I understand now. It's also about like other parts of intimacy. I don't think people that time were really open about like owning their emotions, expressing their emotions in this like kind of healthy way. It was and it was based almost everywhere more on this like role mate relationships, where it still was more about survival. It wasn't so much about this like soulmate where you want to really meet the soul of the person and you really want to know the depths of their soul. There were some exceptions, but they were more of exceptions that regular. And I think right now we are craving for more depth. So we are craving for more intimacy, partially because we are out of that survival mode mostly. And now we have that opportunity and time and resources to actually go deeper in a connection and experience in more bliss. But to experience more bliss, we also have to experience those, other parts of us. And from tantric perspective, and that again, masculine and feminine energies within us, when I actually started to look what's happening and why this intimacy, the desired intimacy, doesn't come so easily. When I took that honest look, I realized that my masculine and feminine inside of me are actually in conflict, like in war, pretty much. So it seems like they are okay, like on a surface level, right? I'm a functional human being, and my like parents were functional family. There was nothing crazy. But if you go deep in the energetic level, there is the inner war. There is the masculine that not fully containing the feminine. There is that feminine who is looking for love and validation outside of that container because she's not contained. And it creates all of those issues of like unworthiness and attracting unavailable partners, or being bored when relationship is actually healthy because it's not what my inner blueprint is. So that actually got me into going like really deep dive into this like inner union and rewiring it within myself. And it's not, it's sometimes it happens like this, but it's also a process of integrating it. Like one thing is getting that insight and realizing it, and it's like, oh, and actually feeling what it's like when they are harmoniously connected within myself, but then also integrating it into like everyday life. And that got me into creating the course too. The Inner Alchemy course is actually about like the at least first phase of it. There are 4 phases. So first phase is about really going into a subconscious blueprint and rewiring that original relationship within ourselves. So there is lots of like journaling from childhood, although I try not to stuck too much in the trauma work, but I love the tantra because it touches on trauma, but then it also provides the direct path of like getting into that inner union, because healing can be like eternal journey, but there is always we can just go straight into that kind of perfect love of Shiva and Shakti, and allow ourselves to make it a normal state of being. And yeah, that's a big part of what I'm teaching.
I
I just want to say, Elena, thank you for sharing that. That is what you spoke of, that inner union, that alchemical marriage is that was essentially what I experienced as well. And it's what, as far as I'm concerned, is what allowed Sasha to come into my life. There was a true chemical marriage that it was where I was truly just fully loving that aspect of myself and creating that containment for the feminine, just acknowledging and honoring that aspect of me fully is what actually essentially created the template for Sasha to come in my life. And that took a few really intense relationships, to get to that point. But yeah, it's just really that what you spoke of there, just really truly acknowledging and honoring the mass and feminine polarity within each and one of us is really the key, because that's when we stop, when there's no longer a conflict, or the war between those two co-created polarities. Then you really actually can experience a harmonious relationship, and not just in your intimate relationship, but in all relationships. And that's been my experience. Yeah.
yeah, and I would say like for me the journey has been around like being completely honest with myself and my partner. Like this is the first relationship, and this takes us back to, right, the shadow of the gene key. The 59th gene key is the shadow of dishonesty. And then when you can be with that, it takes you into the gift of intimacy, and then eventually into the city of transparency, those of you that are into gene keys. And for me, it was like, can I be completely honest with myself and, the partner that I'm choosing, so that nothing is left kind of like in the shadow where I'm, trying to be the good girl or to be pleasing myself or, my partner. And I think that that was just like my way of doing the work that you guys are talking about. Because in order to be in truth, you have to have the inner masculine kind of stand up for the truth. And then the feminine to be like, yeah, this is me. This is the truth. This is what I need. This is what I want. So it seems like a similar like experience, just framed in a different language inside of me. Like, because I never thought that there was like an alchemical marriage happening inside of me. But like hearing you guys talking about it, there is just a different expression of the same process that has happened.
Mm-hmm. And it actually leads me to what Jonathan said about nervous system, because it's just like looking from different perspectives. You can look from tantric perspective, you can look from nervous system perspective. And so when I started to experience that inner union, so it's not just having my own strong inner masculine, which is also important, it's prerequisite, but also what that inner masculine doing to my inner feminine, and how my inner feminine feeling in relationship to that inner masculine. And then I started to, like when actually he holds me with like that love and devotion, and my feminine can relax, and it's like, there are like those deeper level of trust and relaxation into myself, and like that I never experienced it with like another man, of course, because like I haven't experienced it within myself. And that was that nervous system. My nervous system needs to be ready for that deeper level of trust and relaxation into others' presence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point. So basically, we're just to summarize, like the last few, uh, intimacy requires nervous system capacity and readiness. And if that is not there, then people can feel unsafe or unworthy and unable to actually hold, like, or stay within the relationship, right? There's going to be some part of them that will want to run away, pull away, sabotage.
Yeah. No, I just basically, and another way to describe what Sasha just said is like you can only really meet another to the depth that you've met yourself. Otherwise you won't feel safe. You'll end up judging, or you'll pull away, like nervous system response, right? Fight, freeze, fawn. And that's just the way it is. So it's like understanding with that awareness and understanding, allows us to be more compassionate with ourselves and each other in that process of like that expansion of, expand our capacity for love and intimacy.
I'm actually curious, Jonathan, if I may ask you about a bit more about that experience of like basically rewiring your nervous system and getting into that alchemical marriage. Because again, from that my like female perspective, what for me was the biggest piece was that my feminine can trust, and she feels held, and then she can show up even more in that so like she feels worthy, and then she feels brave to express herself, not even brave because she's held, right? So she just kind of expressive and creative, and it's like layers and layers. Like the more masculine holds her, the more expressive she is. And I wonder how and that's kind of what I teach women, but I wonder how it is for men. Maybe when I want to teach men, how would I explain that to men? Like, what was your experience? Like, how were you like absorbing and like interacting with like your feminine, or like?
Yeah.
Great
Yeah,
question.
it's a great question. So it was a journey. It was a progressive journey that started off with me first, like choosing to have like a self-maintenance, self-care, self-love practice. When I truly chose to be on that healing path. And of course, for me, it was like literally like reversing all the damage and wear and tear and self-abuse behaviors as a martial artist and someone who used to numb and distract myself from feeling so much. Like so when I started the path, like so basically I went back to school for after actually like pretty contrasting. I went to Afghanistan, after fitness and health, I went to Afghanistan and did 6 months there as a civilian contract. But the point is that was a really rough place. It's like, very masculine, right? It's a war zone. And after that, I went to India and began my yoga teacher training and all the rest of it. And I just had this started my spiritual path essentially. And then I came back from that and I right away started teaching yoga, meditation, personal training, group fitness. I was just fully immersed in holistic wellness and fitness. And that's what allowed me to start peeling back the layers of the armor, the conditioning. But the reality is, even though I was doing that progressively, I was still, I was still using, like, I was still numbing and distracted. I wasn't as self-abuse in my body as I was in the past, but I was still using cannabis and alcohol essentially regularly to turn down the volume so I wouldn't feel so much because that's what I was finding is
Release the pressure.
yeah, because as I was peeling back the layers, also I'm feeling more emotion, and that is that can be overwhelming, especially for men who we haven't had the same we haven't had ability to learn how to work with all the emotions like women, right? I always use women have had like the full box of 64 crayons, or men have only had like a small handful to be able to play with, and to become familiar with and know how to access. So that all that work that's what led me to really to move to Costa Rica, and that's where I was really able to finally, for the first in my life, I felt safe to truly start peeling back the layers of the armor because I was so immersed in nature, but I was also like truly connected with people where I truly felt safe to allow myself to be seen fully in a way I had not allowed myself to be seen in the past.
For those of you that don't know, Jonathan and I spent 5 years in Costa Rica full time.
Yeah.
So this is what he's referring to.
Yeah. So I want to so really the work I've done with men, guiding them in other men in this process is first of all, it's reconnected with nature. It's like understand we are extensions of nature and like knowing how to like just connect with nature, that feminine energy, the life force energy and the elements that make up that life force energy. So just like that's the first stage. It's developing that emotional intelligence and that emotional awareness, start working with understanding how to better access, reveal, and feel those emotions, like, and therefore allowing us to better heal those stuck emotions, allowing those energies and emotions to actually move through us. And I was saying, because I was in Costa Rica, it was a really great gift for myself, right? I was much more connected to the feminine. It was safe as a man to be more connected with the feminine. In other words, I was doing stag dancing. I was, in cacao ceremonies and working with plant medicines and just, and spending a lot of time in nature. And this is really what allowed me to go really hard and fast in my healing and awakening journey in Costa Rica because I was so connected with the feminine there and it was safe for me to do so. Like I remember my first trips to Costa Rica, it was like 2016. I remember witnessing like at a market, two men embracing. And I remember going like, it was making me uncomfortable. Like because it was like a real like hug, like they were real like sitting there in the middle of a busy market, really hugging, engaging each other. And I remember going like I remember how that made me feel. I remember when I first started to stag dancing, which was only in 2016 as well. When I came back from Costa Rica, it was like, oh, this is stag dancing. I remember that was difficult. I always loved to dance, but I was only able to do so usually in clubs or bars or when I was intoxicated because that was the only way I could be in those spaces. And so like even initially for me stag dancing was like so uncomfortable because it was just like there was a lot of conditioning around what it meant to be a man and like it be not be too expressive anyway. So the base thing is like it's learning to acknowledge and honor the inner feminine and just what those qualities those are, like what that make up the feminine principle. For me, that's is like a really big is important to understand in this journey, especially as a man, because so much of our lives, for myself at least, and the masculine collective really has been a completely not acknowledging and honoring the inner feminine, and as a result, not acknowledging and honoring our emotions, our like compassion for ourselves, our intuition, our
Desires. Yeah.
desires. Yeah, like all these things that have been repressed and suppressed or oppressed. And it's just like the only way, like, yeah, men, it's like first acknowledging that inner feminine, and learning how to hold space for oneself. And then and as a result, you learn how to hold space for others. But this goes back to the whole, you can only hold space for another and meet someone else to the degree and depth that you've met yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I feel like what's also pretty sad, what I'm noticing, that it's not only men who cannot hold space for their own inner feminine, which is emotions and all of this like expressions of life, but yeah, emotions pretty much. But women themselves, like the whole society, is not really honoring the feminine. It's
True.
shifting slowly, but even women, like, and we talked about it with Sasha, I think last time, but it's about that all the whole feminist movement. It actually brought us just like, okay, now women can be in masculine roles and they succeeding in that, but there is still not much honoring for feminine energy. It just women became other men and that's it. And they
Yeah.
even looking down on feminine energy sometimes even more than men, like they don't accept their own vulnerability, their own sensuality, like softness, like it seems like it's weakness, like it's lower than masculine, right? Like the structure and the flow. Structure is important, flow is like, yeah.
Mhm.
You said right there, it appears weak. It's unsafe for the feminine
Mhm.
to be on this planet. That's
Still.
the feminine collective and the feminine within each one of us doesn't feel safe to be on this planet because of how the masculine, the patriarch, like has, just essentially dominated and just and really repressed that and suppressed that and oppressed that.
But
And,
it's
That's
and
doing it, um,
it's
but it's
changing.
like doing it
exactly.
within our psychic, right? Like even my own inner masculine is still not, like it's still kind of like dominating, like instead of honoring and holding her in devotion. Like
And
it's,
that's probably gonna take, that's probably gonna take this whole century for people to begin
yeah,
to
yeah.
like recondition, right? To be like, oh, my intuition is just as important as my logic, right? My flow is just as important as my structure. And I believe it's people like us who are choosing. We're not just choosing, we've been like assigned by life, you guys, I like to think of it, to be intimacy mentors, right? So that we ourselves can walk through this journey of what is intimacy? How do we cultivate healthy intimacy? And then be able to guide others through a similar process. So I'd like to take us into our last question. What does it actually take to stay in intimacy, and who usually needs support learning this? And when I say who, this is the opportunity for us to talk about the work that we're doing. How do we actually support people, and who are these people that we support in our intimacy and embodiment work? So, who would like to go first?
Happy to go first.
Mhm.
Okay.
So what does it actually take to stay in intimacy? It takes a commitment, a devotion to being intimate with oneself, to
Hmm.
truly know oneself, to truly acknowledge and honor all aspects of oneself. So the spiritual, the material, the masculine, the feminine, like
Inner,
it
outer.
the inner, the outer, like it's like our inner world, our outer world, our inner environment, our outer environment, our inner community, our outer community. It's like all aspects of who we are. It's like it's just it takes a continuous, like a devotion to that practice of like really knowing ourselves fully. It really does, because that's really what allows us. And the more we know ourselves fully, the more we naturally start to peel back the layers of conditioning, the armor that we build up to feel safe in this world. And who usually needs support learning this? Well, a big part of the maturing mass and collective. I mean, this is why,
Mhm.
the last 5 years I've been committed to men's work, and it's been one of the most challenging 5 years of my life. Like men are so resistant to this, and I get this because men have not been taught how to access their emotion. They haven't taught how to be in tune with themselves, right? And as a result, and not just that, they want to be providers. They don't want to be put into a healing process because that's chaos. That's chaos, this instability. For healing transformation to happen, you need to first destabilize the structure, right? To be able to create something new. Men don't want to be destabilized. They want to be solid so they can do what needs to be done to create safety for themselves, their family, like, and so I get it. Um,
This could be a whole other
yeah.
episode. It's like
That's
how
a
do
very
we
interesting point. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
how do we support men who
Mhm.
are, providing and need to be that stable force? How do we support them to actually do this work? Like, right, that maybe we do another episode on that because we could probably dive into it and it would be very valuable.
And I'll say one thing to end that, because basically it's called men's group. Like every man needs a brotherhood, just like I believe every woman needs a sisterhood. Remember, we're not here to do this work alone. And in order for like Sasha and I like inform that's what I learned 5 years ago. That's why I got into men's work. It's like in order for me to show up in this relationship as a mature, responsible man, I need to surround myself with other men would challenge me to continue to show up as my highest expression and to really truly embody mature masculine.
Yeah, beautiful.
Mhm.
Lena, would you like to take a go at what does it actually take to stay in intimacy, and who are the people that you work with that may, need support in learning
Mhm.
this?
Yeah. To answer the question, what it takes, I think it takes a strong desire to get out of the victim mentality, understanding, and like, so the suffering pretty much has to get so bad because otherwise people not gonna move. I feel like we get stuck in our routines and people don't recognize the value of it until it gets really painful. And then it's time to then take responsibility for your own well-being and for your own growth. And that's that where my offerings can be useful. I do work mostly with women, although I'm considering men, but right now I'm focusing on women specifically because I see so much suffering in women and so much confusion why they cannot attract the right partner, why it's not working, why men are passive, why they're weak, or why they're like unavailable. And again, it's just the reflection of their own the inner conflict. So that's why I offer this course, Inner Alchemy, but also one-on-one coaching. With that, I also explain like some dating principles, because it's not just that we have like so much inner like work to do and trauma to heal, but we also lost the art of courtship, the art of dating. And sometimes it can be triggering for people when I actually telling them like, like that's how you should be the one who is choosing. You should be surrounded, like I'm talking about the dating situation. The women are not comfortable be like just staying in their center and allow men to courtship them and be the one who is like choosing. They like so used to like attaching too quickly to a wrong guy, and then of course like it doesn't work. And creating that structure, that actually that inner masculine, that healthy inner masculine that most women don't have. They have their armor and they can confuse this armor with their healthy inner masculine. It's not. So what I'm doing, I'm helping them to create that inner masculine, which comes with that also like that container of like understanding, okay, that's how you're gonna build your dating strategy. That's how you're gonna recognize red and green flags, because some of us like so lost in it that we need those like external pointers as well to support the inner work. But I would say that, yeah, the inner work would be like 90% and 10% would be that like external structure or dating coaching, so to say.
Beautiful. I'm so excited, Lena, to be introducing you to our listeners as well, right? Because of this perspective that you provide on dating and what is a dating strategy? Like I cannot talk about that. I haven't dated in ever,
I can. I really, there's nothing, I don't think I've like, nothing leaks energy more than dating apps. Like that was the biggest waste and leakage of my time ever. But I remember at that time wanting so desperately to be in relationship, but then like how do you find people these days? Right. And I do have a yeah, it's just like I just like I anyone who's I almost want to speak to those individuals right now is like, like just this is where it's like it's all an inside job, like just really just love yourself, marry yourself, date yourself for long enough and not be giving your energy there. And the moment you're not looking, that's exactly when life will put a worthy partner on your path.
Because that's what happened
That's
with
what happened
me.
to me 3 times, and the third time was a charm.
What a charm.
What a charm.
So I'm going to take a shot at answering this question. What does it actually take to stay in intimacy, and who usually needs support learning this? Yes, I mean, I love what you both mentioned. It's like the commitment and the desire to actually explore, like, what is intimacy? How do I stay in intimacy? I think commitment and that desire is a big one, because yeah, if you don't have commitment, right? Like Jonathan often says, 99% commitment is the same as 1% commitment, right? It's like not better. 100% commitment is 100% commitment. And so
It's quoting Richard Rudd.
exactly. Quote Mitra 29th Gene Key. And I do find that oftentimes people just haven't decided. They haven't decided. Like, for example, just a very quick example. Over the last, I don't know how many years, a long, long time, I only now I'm recognizing that I didn't have capacity to like build long-term relationships because we were moving so much. And only now I'm like, I am ready. I'm ready to like meet new friends at this new city that we found finally, and it's like an inner decision. I wasn't even aware of this before, that I didn't have capacity or commitment to make friends before, but now I'm like, yes. So it's like that choosing of, I want to stay in intimacy, I want to experience intimacy, and um, like, let's see what happens, being open to seeing what happens, right? Without needing to control. Now, because oftentimes we can also control what intimacy looks and how other people show up. So, and who needs this? I think the whole world needs this. The whole world needs this, both men and women. But in our work, we work with couples, committed couples, whether they're married or not married, they got to be committed, who want to use their biggest superpower, which we believe is intimacy, sacred sexuality, right? Like, how do we combine our energies, our life force, so that we can then amplify and create from that space of connection and that space of commitment. And with my own work, I also work primarily with women. And these are the women that are high achievers. They may have material success, they may have, the successful career, but they are missing the intimacy with their like deeper purpose, which often creates this feeling of emptiness. And like, I have everything I thought I needed, but why the hell am I still unhappy? Why do I feel empty? So my work is taking them into this deeper intimacy with themselves, their heart, and their higher purpose, so that their work, and all the things that they have created, they can truly enjoy. So it's all similar, right? Intimacy, uh, from different angles, right, can look different from many different people. But yeah, I would like to see if we maybe can close. And as we close, maybe we can just each go through, like, what would be the final message that you would like to say to our listeners, while also just a very quick maybe reminder of how can listeners work with us, or how can they find you, us. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, so final message. But into me, I see intimacy. It's all an inside job. It all begins with oneself. And just for especially those men out there, remembering that we're not here to do this alone. Find a mentor, find a brotherhood, and really choose. Find these spaces where you feel safe to practice vulnerability with empowerment and start peeling back the layers of conditioning so you can actually experience the level of love and connection that you are deserving of. Yeah. And for those men who are truly committed to their personal growth expansion, I do work with mentorships. I do 3 to 6 month mentorships with men who are either really calling in a sacred partnership or that are currently in a committed marriage that are really looking to be able to better meet their wives who are the truth is women are awakening faster both spiritually and sexually on this planet, and I know a lot of men are struggling with keep meeting their women. So I love to work help men do just that.
Beautiful.
Hey,
Thank you.
thank you for this beautiful work you do.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we need this. We need this. Yeah, and I also like what Sasha, what you said, if I can maybe take from there, that you said about it's about committing and choosing. And my final word would be choose yourself first. Like you cannot, lots of women are longing to be chosen, but you cannot be chosen until you choose yourself fully first. And yeah, and that's where I'm inviting women to join me for that inner alchemy. It's a self-paced course, so they can take their time with it. It's a beautiful journey, exploring that inner union, exploring how to build your own inner masculine, how to then really lean into your feminine. And there are lots of beautiful practices like essential dance and yoga and tantra, and actually stepping into that queen energy. So yeah, and I'm actually teaching a webinar this Sunday. Maybe I can post the link to that one. It's about stages of dating, and actually it's open for both men and women. We'll see how it goes. Sometimes people get a bit triggered by what I say.
That's perfect.
And you also do one-on-one mentorships, right?
And I do one-on-one mentorship. Thank you so much, yeah, for mentioning that. Yes.
Beautiful. Yay. Thank you, Dana, for sharing that. What would be the last thing I would like to share? What I would like to share is that what I'm learning in my own life regarding intimacy is that it cannot be rushed. Your process with intimacy, shouldn't be forced. But what I would like to encourage people is to just like stay open to exploring their own definition of intimacy, right? Because maybe you have your own definition and it looks completely different than what we presented today. And I'm just would like to leave this invitation for people to not be so afraid of this word, and finding different ways to define it for themselves and then seek it out, right? Like being able to meet our own needs in a way that is right for us. And yeah, inviting women for myself in one-on-one mentorships. Again, women that may be successful externally, but completely unsuccessful, unfulfilled internally. And yeah, we will leave all these links for all of us in the comments below. We would also love to hear how everything we discussed today lands for you. Love to hear your comments. If there are any questions, right? Like there's so many threads that we could take into next episodes, like the armor, looking at how do we de-armor ourselves, or anything else.
Give us some, encourage the audience to give us ideas. Like, where would you like us to take this conversation next time? Because this is a real pleasure to be able to come have this talk with the three of us. So, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and I want to give big thanks to all of us for showing up and being willing and able to just like express and see what comes through. And I'm very excited to continue doing this with the three of us because it
Mm.
feels like a really good combo.
It was amazing. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Elena.
And thank you, our listeners, for for taking the time out of your busy days to listen to this and to contemplate this very important topic. And once again, we'd love to hear your comments. And until we see you next time, bye for now.
Ciao.
Bye.